Occupying only 5 square kilometers, or 2 square miles, nestled in between Montana and Idaho, Ikamara is the smallest member of the United States. Situated on a small plateau between 2 unnamed peaks in the Rocky Mountains, Ikamara came to be as an 1895 border dispute between the 2 neighbouring states. Settlers came from the east and stopped in the valley sometime in the early 1850s, believing they had become the first people to arrive this far west. The locals declared this entire region a new state to the Union. But seeing as the terrain ahead and behind them was deadly wilderness, the settlers decided to stay put and never actually told anyone they had founded the new state. It wasn't until 45 years later in 1895, during a geographical survey by Montanan government officials, that this discrepancy was discovered. While Montana and Idaho squabbled over which state the tiny town belonged to, the people of Ikamara still maintained that the entire region had been their state since the foundation of the settlement. The Supreme Court eventually got involved in the first case in US history where there were 3 parties to the case. Thanks to a split vote for Idaho and Montana, the Supreme Court ruled in favour of Ikamara, 4-3-2, and it was admitted to the Union on February 29, 1900. Since then, Ikamara has grown into a dense neutron of economic and social activity. Connections have improved, with the I-60 highway allowing people to drive in and out of the city more easily and allowing the city to be dragged into the modern day. When those border surveyors arrived, the population was still living as though it was 1850. The capital, and only city in the state, is New Liverpool, housing nearly all of the state's 29,000 people and taking up nearly 100% of the state's land area. Outside of the city is Attasanoff Spring, a local lake which is the hub of community life. Yearly 4th of July celebrations take place on the banks of the lake, while in December, on the last day of the school year, it is customary for local high schoolers to jump into the ice-cold lake as a yearly challenge. The small spring also nourishes a rare form of kelp, unusually high in sugar for seaweed, which is then fermented by the Elkers Brewer Co. as the state beverage, Ikamaran Seaweed Beer. The rest of the state is divided into 3 unequally sized parts. The largest is the 10 wards of New Liverpool, with the River Etche running through the middle. The northern half is the wealthier part, home to the richest 25% of citizens, most of the government buildings, the central business district, and the only McDonald's in the world with green arches. The most striking thing in this city is the lone skyscraper, 238 Uranium Avenue. It's a fairly recent addition to the city, completing construction only in 2010, and is precisely tall enough so that when you look out from the highest floor, you can see over the top of the 2 unnamed peaks and into the valleys beyond. The tower is a popular tourist attraction, bringing in over 1 million tourists per year. The south side is where the other 75% of the population live. The small land area of the state means most citizens live in duplexes or tenement blocks, but even then the rent and house prices can still be quite high. Here you'll also find the state's 2 high schools and U of E, the state's only university. It's not very good though. You may have noticed from this map that there are 2 small discrepancies to the city's borders. They don't quite match the state borders. To the southwest there's a small block of 3 single-family houses, the only suburb in the entire state. This is due to a 1937 map error when city planners were drawing up zoning laws. While the entire area was zoned for high-density buildings to conserve space, a careless mapmaker drew the wrong borders and zoned this tiny area as low density. It took until 1973 to notice the error, at which point the 3 houses had already been built. Because of Ikamara's limited space, remoteness, and high density, these houses are among the most expensive homes in the state, costing as much as a penthouse suite at 238 Uranium Avenue. The other discrepancy in the state boundaries is the P.J. Peterson Golf Course, a 5-hole golf course to the south of the state. The very existence of this is a hotly contested issue in state politics. Some believe the course, built in 1989, is a huge waste of space, taking up a big chunk of the valley's very limited land area for a mostly bland grassland that requires payment to use while also pushing up house prices. Others say there are literally miles and miles of untouched wilderness in the forests and mountains surrounding the state, and a few fields for a fun game is nothing much to worry about. Concessions have been made. In 2005, a fifth hole was converted into a much smaller mini-golf hole to allow the construction of an extra block of flats. Icamara is the only US state that drives on the left side of the road. Once again, this is because of the state's isolation. When the first consumer cars began arriving in Icamara in the 1920s, they were airlifted by hot air balloon because the roads leading into the state were all too poor quality to drive them there. It was complete chaos at first, and many of the newly imported cars were badly damaged in car accidents. This was until the state governor, Thomas Pilgrim, issued a decree ordering all cars to keep to the left. Pilgrim had never left the city before and had no idea that the rest of the country drove on the right. It's also the only state where dueling is legal. Under the rocky hills that line the state are vast deposits of uranium, which accounts for a large percentage of where US uranium sources come from. This reliance on uranium has found its way into Icamaran culture, with the local NFL team being the Icamaran Miners, and an atomic symbol appearing on the state flag. Even the state's motto allures to the immense power of atoms, a quote from the Greek philosopher Testicles that reads, "It is not the size that matters, but how the matter is used." The reliance on uranium is a very large part of the tiny state's economy due to having very little room for other industry. The sole mining company is owned by the state government, with all profits going into the state budget to ensure the people get maximum benefit from their resources. This also makes Icamara the lowest tax state in the world. There are only two taxes: a monthly tax on cars and car parking due to the limited space, and a 2% flat income tax, but only during the months of March to September. This is because during the summer months people use less electricity and nuclear power plants are buying less uranium from the state. Despite this reliance on mining, there has been room for other industry. There's the aforementioned Elker's Brewing Co., Coca-Cola, the soft drink and toothpaste company, and a growing film industry. That's right, Icamara is often the filming location for many Hollywood films. Some movies or TV shows filmed in Icamara that you may have seen include Top Gun, Avengers Endgame, A Fistful of Dollars, and The Thing. Some famous people from Icamara include actor Alexander O'Malley, Margaret Simons, the first woman on the moon, author J.J. Reeves, Dennis Cooper, the frontman for the band Blocked Artery, actress Louise Powell, my mate Dave, world's oldest man Adam Littler, feet historian Kelly Monroe, Biggie Smalls, and Simon Stone, Italian Prime Minister. Unlike most other states, the Icamaran legislature has only one house, the Senate, comprised of only 10 senators elected via proportional representation. Strangely enough, the legislature is not the city council, and there is an entirely different body for the governing of the city. Some say this is a waste of money and resources, seeing as though the city council is just a less powerful state legislature without jurisdiction over 3 houses, a golf course, a lake, and a few trees. In 2020, the Abolish the New Liverpool City Council party won 2 seats on the city council. State politics is otherwise mostly non-partisan, with there only being 3 of the 10 senators belonging to a political party. By pure coincidence, in nearly every presidential election since 1964, the state alternates between Democratic and Republican, with the only exceptions being 1992, when they were the only state to vote for Ross Perot, and 2004, when they voted to re-elect President Al Gore. So with all these strange curiosities, record-breaking oddities, thriving economy, and political novelties, why is it that you've never heard of Icamara before? You won't catch the Icamara Miners playing in the NFL. You won't see it on Wikipedia, or in books, or even on the US government website. You won't see Icamaran politicians being interviewed outside Congress. Its election results are barely reported on mainstream news. It seems people are mysteriously ignoring or forgetting about the state, and evidence of the state's existence are scant. So what's the big deal? Well, it's not just low taxes and a cool flag that the vast deposits of uranium have brought on the people of Icamara. it's also high levels of radiation. In a biological arrangement that baffles scientists, the rare high-sugar kelp in Atasanov Spring is mostly absorbent of this radiation, making the radioactivity quite harmless to people in the area. However, it does cause memory loss. Very few people who visit Ikamara return having remembered anything about their visit. Who knows, maybe you visited the state before, but you didn't remember it. Maybe you've seen the miners play on TV, but never remembered it. Maybe you've lived there and don't remember it. Wait, what was I talking about?